This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Ben Turney, the CEO of Kavango Resources. Hello, Ben. How are you today?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Mark. Very good. How are you?
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you for your time this morning. So, of course, Kavango have released some news this morning. It's a conceptual economic viability report on the IOCG target at the KSZ. So, first of all, maybe just in your own words, why did you have this report commissioned?
So the IOCG target is quite deep. We know that. We think it starts at around about 1,000 metres. It's a theory that was sort of first put forward about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. So it's something that Jeremy Brett was aware of. Now, Kavango wasn't aware of this until we got the results of our the initial results of our KSZ DD001 hole, which we drilled into the Great Red Spot last November. That went down to 1,000 metres depth. Now, one of the things that we observed in the core straight away was magnetite, this sort of 4% magnetite that we hit. Now, that immediately alerted Jeremy because one of the key aspects or features of an IOCG system is that they're often wrapped in a large zone of magnetite. Magnetite, of course, is a form of iron oxide. Now, typically in IOCG, it's hematite, another form of iron oxide, that tends to host the mineralization. But this presence of magnetite was very interesting to Jeremy because based on our magnetic modelling, which we have a great deal of confidence in because we've successfully drilled these magnetic targets almost precisely where they were modelled. According to the intensity of the magnetic modelling, the 4% magnetite coincided with the magnetic model where we intercepted the Great Red Spot. Now, going deeper into the system, the magnetic model suggests that the magnetic intensity increases, and if it turns out the magnetite and possibly hematite are the sources of this, but magnetite in particular, then that could suggest that we are looking at this very large system, which is very magnetite rich. So it's a possible, exploration lead, physical exploration lead. But obviously it's deep. And it's a new target style and a new mineralization style. So we've done some initial groundwork. We've done AMT surveys, and gravity surveys and some ground magnetics. So we've spent some exploration budget on this. But before we went much further down the exploration path, we wanted to make sure, and this is really important for our shareholders to understand, we wanted to make sure that we weren't chasing windmills. We didn't want to just sort of go charging off in this, ill-defined blue sky vision, lots of arm waving, wouldn't this be wonderful, unless we had confidence that at the end of all of this, there actually could be a genuine economic target. So today's report is a conceptual study, but it gives us confidence to move forward to the next stages of exploration.
So you have caveated there by saying it's conceptual, and of course the RNS does refer to that as well. The numbers do look pretty tasty though, but should they be taken with a pinch of salt, or is there more to this?
Simple answer is yes, definitely they should, because at the moment it's a conceptual study. Okay. So we're obviously working on the basis of these largely geophysical indicators. So we've got this coincident magnetic and gravity anomaly. This is what is really sort of excited us about the geophysical signature of this target, because it's very, very similar to that's seen at Olympic Dam, both in terms of intensity and in terms of scale, size, and apparently shape as well, if you look at some of the images that are on our website. So that's very interesting. We've got the physical magnetite lead as well from the hole that I just talked about, but we also have these AMT surveys, and this CSAMT technology we're now using is really proving to be a key and crucial aspect of Kavango's exploration strategy moving forward. So at the moment, we don't know if the mineralization is down there. So that's why obviously this is conceptual. But from what we can see, particularly from the CSAMT surveys that we've run, is what look like these very large zones of alteration. So obviously, no two IOCG deposits are the same. So we're having to sort of work on the basis of an analogue with Olympic Dam, but the reality is the geology will be different down there. But we believe there are these very large alteration zones, and if those do host economic mineralization, what today's report has shown is that it is feasible to sink 2 mine shafts into targets at this sort of depth and mine them economically. Obviously, it will come down to bulk and grade, and there's a lot more that we need to do. But it's just showing that this is a target that we can go for, and at the end of it, there could be a very big and realisable price.
Okay, so it's showing there is economic potential that is worth pursuing, rather than effectively just saying no, it's never going to get anywhere. There's no point in actually pursuing this. It's giving you a bit of confidence that if there's something there, then it could be economic.
Exactly. Now, look, if the report had come back and said, look, best case scenario is, let's just say, a marginal economic case, then obviously from our point of view at this stage, and we could have walked away from this target, and quite easily walked away from it. We've got our primary shallower targets in the nickel copper sulfides. We've made great advances there over the last 18 months. We're using, obviously, the time domain electromagnetic surveys to identify these conductors. We've got big plans for the KSZ that we'll be talking much more about in the near future. So, at this stage, if this project were going to get killed prior to being, this would have been the point to do that. So, and that wouldn't have been, ideal, but it would have been a fairly easy decision. We haven't invested too much so far in terms of resource. However, the reports come back with a much more positive view, and it does look like we have something serious to go for. So yeah, it's definitely going to be sort of much sort of higher up our agenda over the coming months.
Okay, so you talked about the reference there to Olympic Dam. Of course, we've referred in the past of the deposit of the KSZ, these gabbroic deposits, to be like Norilsk. So we've got sort of two different things going on here. Do you want to maybe, does it change your idea that as Olympic Dam and Norilsk very different, or what are we talking about?
It's a good question, Mark. It's a good question. So this IOCG target is very specific to the Great Red Spot, and you're right, it is a second mineralization style. So we're basically looking at stacked plays here, which in minerals exploration is fairly rare. I mean, you get it in oil exploration, where you might have multiple possible oil-bearing horizons that companies go for. Well, increasingly, what it's looking like we have are two completely different mineralization styles. So the Norilsk style nickel copper sulfides closer to surface, and this iron oxide copper gold alteration system possible, I should say, that's obviously deeper and underneath that. Now, part of our exploration theory, the reason that we believe that this is viable, is if you look at the regional maps that we've produced, and Jeremy in particular has done some excellent work on, you obviously have the main north-south KSZ, which sits on the western edge of the Kapval Craton. We've talked about that a lot. But what you have intercepting the KSZ are a number of these cross-cutting regional, very long faults, which in geological terms, these faults are obviously just where a lot can happen geologically over a very long period of time. And in the Great Red Spot specifically, we have a nexus, so in other words, a junction of at least three of these faults cross-cutting the Great Red Spot. So effectively what that means is that there are lots of spaces that would have sort of opened up in the earth for magma to have passed up through, obviously carrying various mineral elements. So this really is as Jeremy keeps joking, it's a great spot for exploration, and X marks the spot. We have a lot of this sort of internally, but the point is that there's been a huge amount going on here geologically over a very, very long period of time, which is why we have these multiple stacked targets.
Okay. The report also references this block cave mining technique. So could you explain a bit more about that?
That's really important. Good point to pick up on. So block cave mining, it's been around now for a few decades, but it wasn't around when Olympic Dam was originally mined. So if you look at the history of Olympic Dam's viewed as an open pit mine. But I think what a lot of people aren't aware of is that they stripped 300 meters of surface rock off Olympic Dam before they started mining. So yes, it is an open pit, but obviously it's open pit at great depth. So to put that into context, if you think about the Shard in London, the Shard Tower, I think that's about 310 meters. They stripped the equivalent layer of rock off the top of Olympic Dam to get to the mine so that they could then mine it. That's obviously affected the economics a great deal. But what that tells you is how valuable these deposits are and how big they are. Block cave mining wasn't around when they first started mining Olympic Dam, but from our from our perspective, this has a great impact on the economic or the potential economics of a mine like this, because basically what it enables miners to do is they mine in stages and effectively collapse walls of rock as they mine through the deposits. So it's a very interesting technique, and I think we'll talk a little bit about it. I mean, we're still obviously very early days in this. We need to make a discovery. But what this sort of helps investors and shareholders understand is sort of how this is technically feasible. So it's how obviously, you sink the mine shaft, or 2 mine shafts have been recommended in this report, into a deposit like this, and then you use this block mining technique to get the minerals out, and that's how this becomes economic.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I think we'll be talking later on. You've got some visuals we can talk over, and maybe you can allude to what is there and the plans to come. So look forward to discussing that later with you. But for now, Ben Turney, the CEO of Kavango Resources, thank you for your time.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.